Ewoks, The Battle for Endor is surprisingly better than the original film. Now, not by a lot, but it is an improvement. It is so much more watchable. Now, it's still bad, it's still somewhat boring, but it actually feels like Star Wars. Oh my god, these forgotten films actually do something right for once and actually make a film that feels somewhat like Star Wars. Now, like with the other film, the other Ewok film, this film is more in the leftover department, where in the original trilogy, in Return of the Jedi specifically, there's a lot of assets, and so this film used a lot of assets that were not used in the film, which include alien designs, alien creatures, set locations. Like there's a castle in this film, there's like these alien main antagonists, which look kind of scary. Now, a place in this cutesy film, but it's just leftovers because this film basically spent all its budget on the stop motion and stuff like that, and also the special effects. They improved, and it's kind of surprising because this was made in 1985, and for a TV movie, it's kind of impressive. But that's with Star Wars. All the special effects are impressive. It's Star Wars. That's all the praise you're getting, because the rest of this film is confusing and doesn't make sense. So the main antagonist of this film wants like this MacGuffin, which is basically this like, it's part of like the family ship. No, yeah, the family. They die in like the first like 10 minutes of the film. It's ridiculous. Why? What was the point of the first film? It's like the first film's so bad that they just decided to just scrap it. The family dies, not off screen, but like the Luke lookalike dies, which I'm like, I mean, I like him. I guess his career didn't really take off after all that. I saw it. No wonder I don't see him in any other film ever again. His career just bombed after this because he just got killed along with their parents. At least the father actually got to speak to the little girl. The mother just dead right off the bat. Like, it's like, oh my god, that's just poor actress. She barely had anything to do in the first film. Now she's just dead in the second, immediately. Like, no lines, just dead. I guess she didn't want to reprise the role again. Makes sense. But they're all dead. All the family's dead. First film's pointless. And, yeah, basically this villain wants this, like, part of the spaceship, and it's very confusing, because I don't know why they really need it, and it makes it more confusing when you do realize that the reason why they do, reason why he does want it, and he calls it the power, and the reason why he calls it the power is because this little contraption is the main component for a spaceship to leave the planet. But how they never show that he has a ship. So, I guess, I don't know. It's convoluted, it's confusing. And that's the thing for most of this film, it's confusing. I didn't understand most of it in terms of the villain's plot. You know, like, it's just so confusing and just mind-boggling. Now, this film feels a lot more like a Jim Henson film. If you don't know, he does the Muppets back in the day. He did a lot of Muppets and kind of, like, puppetry to make it, like, he pretty much made puppets mainstream and made them realistic to our real world, you know, and it's very immersive. Same with the stop motion, very immersive again. It's kind of cool. Also, one of the aliens that these villains use as like horses, I mean, there's still real life horses in this and still real life animals, not to the extent of the first film, but it's still there. Like, you have realistic horses, and the alien creatures that they actually use are actually from the Mandalorian. Those two-legged, like, fish-headed looking big creatures from the Mandalorian and the Clone Wars. I'm like, oh my god, this is the first appearance of these, aren't they? Insane. Again, same with the first film with the Wisties. I'm like, really? This film is what introduces them? Okay. Alright. I mean, it's cool, because they look pretty cool in this film, even though they don't do a whole lot, because it's stop motion. They can't really do a whole lot. It would cost them, like, so much money. But they're cool, nonetheless. They are. Like, a lot of people said this is gonna be bad, it'd be terrible, this is the worst out of the two. They may have had it confused, because the first film is the worst one. That film is so boring, and a lot of it's just filler. I did not have a point, like, when I watched this film, there was no point where I wanted to skip. Like, even though it was still boring, I didn't want to skip it. Like, scenes actually matter, rather than being like, all these misfortunes that these characters are going through. That's not like that. There's actually a bigger plot. you know. And I always, like, majority of the film I was wondering, there's no battle for Endor. Why is this clickbait? But then there is actually a battle on Endor, which makes sense. The film title makes sense. Not like the other film that I don't understand the title of, really. Don't know why it's called that. I mean, a little bit, but not really. But with Battle for Endor, it actually does make sense. So I give him props for that. But the film's still pretty bad, convoluted. It's kind of slow pacing in the beginning half of it. Well, actually, the first 10 to 15 minutes are actually jam-packed with action, which I give that props for. It's much more entertaining. The beginning of it, at least, is much more entertaining than the first film. But when it came to like the middle portion, it kind of dragged on. You know, I was yawning. It was kind of tiring watching that. But I'm glad I got through it. I actually had a better time watching this than did with the first one. Honestly, I like the second one more. I mean, I would not recommend watching it unless you are just want to suffer, because this film is still in the same vein as it's not that entertaining, but it still has some cool action and special effects if you want to see some kind of the original trilogy special effects. But it does leave with a happy ending, even though, yes, the family is killed off, which I think is stupid and pointless. I think, like, at the end of the film, at the end of this duology, the little girl, I think her name's Shendel. It's like Kendall, but with an S. So Shendel. This old dude that kind of just had a quick turnaround, you know, a quick character arc, which doesn't make sense either, but you know, this is meant for little kids to just go with it. They go in the spacecraft that he has, because he crash landed here as well. Same with the little girl. They both crash landed. And they both leave planet. They actually go and leave, which I'm surprised. I'm like, oh, thank God, leave this planet, because I understand why this stuff is not canon to Star Wars. Endor is just a terrible place to be. Like, first of all, the Ewoks don't blink. They just have the death stare. Like, they just do not, like, they do not look cute. This is a very, silly, just, I call it Jim Henson. I get that Jim Henson vibe, because it's serious, like, it's trying to be serious, but it's very silly, and very just cutesy and stuff like that. You know that vibe when you watch something, it's like, oh, it's very cutesy, you know. You watch something and say, oh, this is not meant for, like, adults. This is meant for little kids, you know. But it has, like, this serious undertone, you know. People, like, her family's dead. You have these alien creatures. The main villain and all his henchmen look terrifying as hell. You know, there's some action scenes in this, which are more intense for, like, babies. But, I mean, like, it feels very, very cutesy, you know. Oh, the Ewoks are doing a little thing, you know, like that type of stuff. It's a very mixed feeling, and it's like only in like older films, like in films that came out like the 80s, 90s, 70s, like they don't make films like these today. I mean, for good reason, because, you know, I mean, I would like films that are like this vibe, but actually have a more compelling story, you know. But I do kind of miss these films. If I was like a little baby, I probably would have loved these films, but no, I'm an adult, and these films kind of suck, both of them. Don't watch them. But there are novelties. But the one good thing I can say about both these films is that they're better than the special editions. And where is that line in my rankings then? Ewoks, The Battle of Endor goes above the first Ewok film, but below Clone Wars the movie. Yes, this is just, I'm surprised. I thought it would have been worse than the first one, because people say it would have been worse, but no, I'm genuinely surprised that it's above it. And it's not going any higher. This is not a film that I would ever rewatch again, but it's just there. It's on the bottom. It's among the worst of the Star Wars, but at least I had fun watching it, because it has some unironically funny moments in it, which is not supposed to be funny, but it just is. Just how ridiculous and stupid this film is. Do you agree or disagree with my ranking? I mean, no one knows these films exist. Except for me. You're now part of the group that knows that these Ewok films exist. You know, I watched these films, I suffered through it, so you don't have to. You know where they rank in my rankings, you know how I feel about them, and that's pretty much the vibe you're gonna get. You know, if you want to watch these films on Disney Plus, be my guest. If not, you're not missing out. Except you get some cool introductions to stuff that doesn't really matter, because they're introduced in more cooler ways later in the franchise. But it's cool that these films exist, but, you know, it's just there. You know, it's not really that impactful to Star Wars at all, and they're meant to be forgotten about. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I'm going to go now, so goodbye, everyone.